So 32 days. 32 days. Okay, we got some business to do. All right. 32 days. And we know we will do it.
So it would appear that Kamala Harris's teleprompter went down at her rally tonight. And folks, if you thought her word salads were bad when she was on script, just take a listen to her off script. It is horrendous. We'll talk about it and watch it here in a second. But first, folks, let me say that if you enjoy our content, please do a big favor and hit that subscribe button down below. Your subscriptions in this election year, trust me, go a long way in ensuring we can keep bringing you videos like this, and it is free. All you got to do is hit that red subscribe button. And with that said, again, take a listen. Here is what happened when Kamala Harris was forced to speak without a teleprompter in her own words. It's pretty interesting. Let's check it out.
Remember his number, 32. Today we got 32 days until the election. So 32 days. 32 days. Okay, we got some business to do. All right. 32 days. And we know we will do it. And this is going to be a very tight race until the very end. We are the underdog. And we know we have some hard work ahead.
Yeah, guys, I think the election is 32 days away. I don't know. I'm not sure. Can someone please confirm for me? So, I mean, you watch that clip back again, and you can obviously tell this is why people suspect that her teleprompter froze. First of all, just because, like, she clearly didn't know what to say. It was very obvious. She repeated, I counted here, she said the phrase 32 days. She said it exactly 4 times. Okay. So you can tell she was saying something 32 days and then she's like, uh-oh. You can see here in her face, right? She's staring at the teleprompter. It seems pretty evident that, it wasn't working. She had to search for words, scramble for words here. So she says, oh, the election's 32 days away. Yeah, guys, it's 32 days away. And then she uses this phrase where she says, long, awkward pause, we got business to do. She doesn't know what business she's talking about. So she says, and we will do it. And predictably, the crowd of absolute robots is like, yeah. But again, like, clearly, she has no idea what she is doing in this clip. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And she basically just tries to, like, repeat herself or not totally collapse on that stage, which really does have to call into question some of her political abilities here, because I get it. Okay, teleprompter goes down. It can be difficult. I think for the ordinary person, if they were out there reading a speech and suddenly it went down, they would be like, they probably do exactly what Kamala Harris said, right? We have 32 days. But here's the thing. You're in this race against Donald Trump, a character who is notoriously good without a teleprompter. In fact, he never really used it, especially back in 2016 at all. It was later in the campaign that political consultants and strategists were saying, okay, you got to read off a speech because we don't want you going too off the rails or whatever, right? But Trump, perfectly fine, perfectly capable of not using that. And meanwhile, when Kamala Harris, for about 60 seconds there, has to figure out what she needs to say, she has absolutely no clue, which is especially hilarious considering the fact that they spent an entire month preparing her for the debate and telling her, okay, here's what your campaign is about. Here are all the talking points. She's probably given this same speech multiple times on the campaign trail already, and yet she has no idea what to go out there or what to say. Meanwhile, if you are a Kamala Harris supporter hoping, okay, but maybe Trump also screwed up something tonight so that way we can counterbalance it or forget about 32 days, newsflash, that did not happen because Trump was smart enough to avoid it. Take a listen.
I think I'm going to stand. This chair is the most uncomfortable chair I've ever. First of all, it spins. And the one thing I don't want is to fall on my ass, because that will be the only story. They'll say, sir, you did great. Too bad you fell. That would be the only story. So I'm not sitting in that sucker. I think it's a booby trap. That was put there by Kamala.
Yeah, so look, this little moment at the Kamala rally tonight is not necessarily the biggest deal in the grand scheme of things. However, it does put a pretty fitting exclamation mark on what has been a horrible week for Kamala Harris. In fact, I would label it the October collapse, because think about just how this week started. World War III on Monday, it was breaking out in the Middle East. You had the whole situation with the port strike and those union workers that were threatening to shut down the nation's supply chain. And so we had national and foreign crises on Monday. And then throughout the week, we have the Hurricane Helene situation and the FEMA scandal, which is already bad enough for Kamala Harris. On Tuesday, JD Vance absolutely crushed Tim Walz in the VP debate. Oh, and how can we forget Kamala Harris also has a personal scandal of her own, because not a lot of people are talking about this, but take a listen to what's currently going on with her husband.
If the name were Trump instead of Emhoff, it would be all over the news. Daily Mail, echoed by the New York Post, has a story. Doug Emhoff, Kamala Harris's husband, accused of a woman he was on a date with at the Cannes Film Festival back in 2012. They had been drinking, and he didn't like how she talked to the valet. He smacked her. She smacked him back.
You do not get very often people coming forward named. And the reason is they're worried about retaliation. These are very powerful people we're talking about. 3 friends all saying they were told the same thing. 2 of them contemporaneously. This woman, Jane, we're calling her, she called one of the friends immediately after the incident. That's what this friend told me.
Ordinarily, I don't care about these stories. You could say, well, there may have been an assault. Maybe. Well, she didn't go to the police. He's not really running. But again, if it were Trump or anyone related to him, it would be on every TV show that is on right now.
We had that as well, and we even had Joe Biden completely upstaging her at the White House press conference today. Now, in the last video, we covered this extensively, and we talked about how Biden purposely, it seems, coordinated this whole thing to interrupt the Kamala speech about it, and it was sort of a little jab or a little attempt to sabotage their campaign. But I also, after that video, I was kind of curious, so I tuned in to listen to the actual press conference, and I don't know what it is, maybe because Joe Biden's had such a long vacation, or he was sure to put on his A game in order to mog Kamala Harris and send a little subtle statement that, hey, I should have been the candidate. But for some odd reason, Joe Biden today was not the Joe Biden of the past couple of years. He was completely sharp. He knew what he was talking about, and whatever you have to say about his policies, he actually seemed mentally sentient. And let's play a couple of the clips here just to give you a brief example of what we are talking about there.
Thank you, Mr. President, for being here. What are you advising the Israelis to do in terms of their retaliation to Iran? And at this point, you still haven't spoken to Netanyahu. Is it fair to say that you have little personal influence over what he decides to do?
No. Look, our teams are in contact 12 hours a day. They're constantly in contact. I've already had my presidential daily brief. We've already had interface between our military, the diplomats. It's in constant contact. They are trying to figure out, it's high holidays as well. They're not going to make a decision immediately. And so we're going to wait to see when they want to talk.
But over the past few months, they've consistently defied your administration's own advice. So do you believe that the Israelis are going to listen to the advice you're giving them?
What I know is the plan that I put together received the support of the UN Security Council, the vast majority of our allies around the world, as a way to bring this to an end. Look, the Israelis have every right to respond to the vicious attacks on them, not just from the Iranians, but from everyone from Hezbollah to Houthis to anyway. And but the fact is that they have to be very much more careful about dealing with civilian casualties.
So how should they respond? You expressed concerns about attacks on Iranian oil facilities. How should they respond?
That's between me and them.
All right, we got to move on. Go ahead, Tam.
The election.
So look, I mean, I'm not here to give Biden too much credit. Say what you will about his foreign policy. That's not what I'm here to defend. But you do notice very oddly, I don't know what happened here, but Joe Biden actually understands the question. He actually answers it. He knows what he is talking about. Again, disagree with the way he's handled it, but he knows the situation currently happening in the world. And honestly, for his standards, I was genuinely pretty impressed. But contrast that with Kamala Harris, and this is why I again have to wonder, was this surprise appearance at the press conference intentional? Is what Joe Biden went out there and did today, though it was not especially exceptional, is not something that Kamala Harris is capable of. Here you had Joe Biden completely open to the media, taking questions from reporters for like 7 minutes or something, which is not a lot of time, but that's more than Kamala Harris will do. Kamala Harris has not done a single formal press conference during this entire campaign. And by the way, even in Biden's responses to the questions, they were not exactly groundbreaking or dynamic, but they were significantly sharper than Biden has been for the past couple years. But on top of that, I would argue, watching him at that press conference today, I thought he was sharper on policy than even Kamala Harris has been. And it seemed like the journalists in that press room had the same exact thought, because take a listen to what this reporter asked Biden at the end of the press conference.
Decision on long-range weapons?
Do you want to reconsider dropping out of the race?
I'm back in.
What made you?
Like, the very context of that clip is not a random question. Again, the reason the reporters were asking, having now myself watch the press conference, is because he came out there and he didn't have dementia all of a sudden. Like, he knew what he was talking about. He knew what he was doing. It wasn't like amazing. It wasn't Ronald Reagan giving his inauguration speech or something, but it was very much more solid than what Biden has been. And by the way, I think actually a lot more articulate than I've ever seen Kamala Harris. That reporter has a point. If you watched the campaign trail of just today and nothing else, you'd have to question, why did they switch out the candidate exactly? Just saying, okay, but in conclusion, again, just a really bad week for Kamala Harris overall. We're calling it the October collapse here. And that little funny moment with the teleprompter, just the extra punctuation on what has been a total disaster for the past 7 days. And if this accelerates into the election, well, it's not looking good for her. That said, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.